4th grade. We're ready for math lesson 158. We're going to go over some concept cards to start this morning. First of all, I have some proper fractions that I would like you to reduce. So go ahead and give the reduced fraction, and I will show you the answer. What is the fraction for 4/12 in the lowest terms? 1 over 3. 6 over 9 reduced to the lowest terms. 2 over 3. 2 over 5. 1 over 4. 2 over 3. Now go ahead and give the terms here for what each of these are called. Intersecting lines, congruent angles, right angle, ray, line, line segment, point, polygon, simple closed curve, perpendicular lines, parallel lines, angle, trapezoid, parallelogram, and rhombus. Oops. Okay, in our lesson today, we are talking about area. What is area? Any ideas? Now, what's the shape, if you think about our classroom, what is the shape of our classroom floor? Can you remember? It's a rectangle, right? Now, if we want to put new carpet on the floor, would knowing the distance around the edge of our carpet, would that help us to know how much carpet we need if we would know just the distance around the edge? Would that help us? Well, it would look strange if we would only have carpet along the edge, right? Of course. So we need to know more than the measurement around the edge of our classroom. We need to know the inside portion to be able to know how much carpet we would need. Now, area is the inside of a shape. To find the area, we must divide the inside of our shape into square units. Now, usually carpet would be sold maybe by the square yard, okay? So they're talking about, let's just talk about a square yard here. So a square yard, instead of it just being a yard long, a square yard is a shape that measures 1 yard wide, 1 yard long. It's 1 yard on every side. So a square yard is the measurement of the distance inside of this square, okay? It's not just a length, but it's the inside of this. This right here, this box, is 1 square yard. So that's how they would sell carpet, by measuring square yards. Now, again, when we're measuring area, we count the squares inside of a shape. And we call that square units. So when we're giving the answer, we're giving our answer in square units. Eventually we will start saying square feet, square yards, square inches. For now we'll say square units. So in your book, on page 285 at the top of the page, they have a purple rectangle box, and they measured the square units, they measured the area by counting the squares, and it came to 96 square units. So that is the area of that rectangle. And the next shape is kind of a funny or odd shape, but they counted the squares inside of that shape, and there were 55. So the area of that shape was 55 square units. Now, in number 1, you need to count how many squares are in the shape. And that will tell the area. That will tell how many square units it is for the shape. So number 1, go ahead and count one at a time. How many square units is that? And that is the area, the measurement of inside of the shape. Now look at number 2. It says count the number of square inches in the rectangle. So can you count how many there are along the top? Like how long is it? How many squares are they from one side to the other side? Now I'm just going to write here. So if you counted correctly, you should have gotten 6 squares, okay? There are 6 squares from one side to the other. Now what about from top to bottom? What would the width be? How many squares are there from top to bottom? 3, right? Yes, there are 3 squares from top to bottom. Okay, now go ahead and count how many squares there are in that whole shape. Just take the next 15 seconds to do that. Count how many squares are in the shape in number 2. Now, you should have gotten 18, okay? Now, we wrote on the chalkboard that there were 6 squares measuring the length, 3 squares measuring from top to bottom. Now, what happens if we go 6 times 3? We get 18 squares, right? So, that is another way of finding the area. If you take how many squares are along the length and how many squares are along the width, and you multiply them, that will give you the total squares in the whole shape. So area is the measure of the amount inside, not just around, but the amount inside. So it would look a lot better in our classroom if we would measure to buy carpet for the whole thing, not just along the edges, right? Of course. Okay, so work your lesson carefully today. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in language class.